Hello and welcome back to the LSAT Prep. It's Jamie again, and I have something special for you today. I'm going to show you a way to save money on your LSAT studying if your budget is really tight. Understandably, not everybody can afford a long class. Some classes from weekends to 10-week-long courses can cost $300 to $1,300, and not everybody is going to be able to afford that expense. But at the same time, you don't want to sacrifice your LSAT studying. So I'm going to show you a couple of different items that you could get for about $150 to help you succeed and hopefully somewhat match the level of studying you would get from a course. Now obviously, me telling you ways to study is not going to help you unless you take the time to actually get into the LSAT content. You really need to devote a large amount of time to studying for the LSAT. It's a very trying test, it's an endurance test, and you need to build up to that endurance level. I would actually suggest that you study 10 weeks or more prior to your actual test. And the reason is that there's a lot of different concepts to master, more so concepts put into a timed setting. So getting to see the different types of questions that can be asked, especially in the logic games, is going to take a bit of time. Given that each section is 35 minutes long, and if you were to practice full tests, it's going to be a very wearying 4 hours and maybe then some. So definitely take the time to put your mind into these books I'm about to suggest. Take at least 10, if not more, weeks studying, because it's not something you want to take lightly. It's something that you want to do right the first time, because you don't want to keep wasting your money, try to take the test again, or worry about getting a lower score by chance if you got sick or something happened. So try to do your best and study the hardest for the first time you take it. Get it right the first time, and you'll be much more happy with yourself when you get that great score. Now, without further ado, let's talk about the basics of what you're going to need to buy. I highly suggest you get the LSAT Proctor. I'm going to just take a look in on that. It's a DVD that actually simulates what it's like to be taking the test, and it has a proctor person giving a live demonstration of it. He's actually taking you through the test in a manner that will probably be similar to the way that you take it. Why do I suggest getting this? Because you need to make sure that you're testing in as realistic conditions as possible. This may mean that you need to take this into a special quiet room, maybe a library, maybe some place that you know you can get away from others for a good amount of time. But you definitely want to get this DVD because it's much more superior to just timing yourself, because it's actually measured out by the sections and by the break that you get. And for the actual course book, my suggestion, based on a number of different series that I've seen, would be to go with the Nova's LSAT Prep, which is mastering the LSAT, and it actually has 4 practice tests inside of here, as well as a CD-ROM, as you can see here in the back, which you can test yourself online and see right away what you're doing wrong, or maybe even what you're doing right. Why do I recommend this book as opposed to others? Well, mainly I would say that it's comprehensive. If you look at the size and the thickness on that book, you can tell there's a lot of content in here. And the biggest thing that I would say is a pro to this book as opposed to others is that it's very thorough and it's very conversational. When you read through this book, you feel like you're in a class. You read through it and you feel as if you're taking a class and there's a proctor actually speaking to you. And I think that's really helpful for keeping your attention, because it can be very trying to actually focus for the LSAT and make yourself study. It's very long, it's very complicated, and often you can get distracted just by the simplest things. And I feel that this author is very engaging when he speaks and when he explains things. It does have every single section there you can imagine as far as coverage. So it has the logical reasoning, logic games, reading comprehension. And I think it does a fairly good job of explaining things from the ground up. And now for the supplementary items. We have to, of course, take a look at the logic games, because those are the things that you have to practice really a lot of and see a lot of to be prepared for on the test, because they're learnable. They're very much like a math problem in that if you learn the series and steps, you can plug in things faster, you can map out things faster, you can see the correlations quicker. And for that, I do recommend the ever-popular LSAT Logic Games Bible. And why I recommend it is because it's really good at the rudiments. It's really helpful when it comes to diagramming the initial logic game setups. It really helps develop your if-then statements. So I really suggest that you get this book as a base for the logic games. And of course, it's going to complement the information inside of Nova's book, and it'll go very well as far as helping you understand how to diagram the logic games. And as far as quantity is concerned, I highly recommend the ACE the LSAT Logic Games book. And what's really great about this is that it has 83 logic games, which gives you lots of practice. It's very important that you practice the logic games because it'll help you see and connect all the statements that they make in the games. And like a math problem, you'll be able to see the setups and know very quickly how to solve them. And as you may know already, the logic games usually set the curve for the tests. Typically, how hard the logic games are in the LSAT usually is what determines the curve. So if you're prepared for the harder logic games and you get a hard test, you'll still be okay. And as I always suggest, be sure to get real actual LSATs. And the next 10 actual official LSATs should suffice for this budget. It's the 10 most recent ones in this format of publication. So I definitely suggest that you get this book because this will be your practice test. These will be your practice tests. You'll get some from the Nova's book as well, but it's really important that you have these fresh ones to be prepared for the most recent LSAT. And so combined with the DVD, you'll be able to actually take simulated LSAT practice tests. And that'll be great. So in review, you want the DVD, the LSAT Proctor, because that's going to simulate your LSATs. It's very important for taking the test and being ready for the test. You definitely want Nova's Master the LSAT because that's kind of like taking your course. And it's much less expensive, and it's very, very conversational, so you feel very comfortable with the reading, and it even has a CD-ROM to do stuff with. And of course, to practice your logic games, you're going to want that Logic Games Bible. You want to develop the ways that you're going to overcome the games and diagram them. And of course, check my LSAT tips and tricks to also see another way to diagram. You want the ACE, the LSAT logic games, so you get lots of logic game practice. And finally, you want to have the real official LSATs because you want to practice the real thing. The best thing that you can possibly do is practice real official LSATs. It'll give you a real feeling of what's going on. And as I say in my other videos, the best thing you can do is stick to the logic of these guys. On a final note, if you could throw in an extra 20 bucks, I really suggest you get the official LSAT Super Prep. And I think I mentioned this before, but it has the LSAT maker's views on all the questions in here, and there's 3 practice tests. So that's a really big help for getting a direct feed of what they're doing. And if you wanted to substitute a book instead of one of the other ones, I would suggest that you substitute maybe the Logic Games Bible instead. And the only reason why I say that is because Nova does give how to do the logic games in a pretty good fashion. And you may not necessarily need this, but it is very helpful. But if you want, this is probably the most expensive book out of the group. If you want to trade that, or possibly, I wouldn't really trade it, but trade it for the next 10 because this has 3 real ones in it. But it's up to you. If I had a choice, I would just get this extra and pay the $170 instead of $150. But it's up to you. So good luck studying, and hopefully I'll see you sometime, maybe in school, and hopefully not against you in court.